Good afternoon. We're going to get started because we only have an hour with Miss Howard, but I would like to welcome you to the third installment of our series, Black Women in Publishing, presented by the Center for Black Literature. My name is Amber Magruder. I am the Director of Operations and Literary Programs for the Center. We are honored to have each of you join us in celebrating the achievements and contributions of Black women within the publishing industry. Your presence enriches our collective voice and strengthens our community. Now, we'll have a Q&A session after our discussion, so be sure to type your questions into the chat. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to our newly minted Executive Director of the Center for Black Literature, Ms. Donna Hill. For those of you unfamiliar with her work, allow me to share some information about her. So Donna Hill began her career in 1987, writing short stories for Confession magazines. Since that time, she has had more than 100 published titles to her credit since her first novel was released in 1990. She's considered to be one of the early pioneers of the African American romance genre. Three of her novels have been adapted for television. She's been featured in Essence, the New York Daily News, USA Today, Today's Black Woman, and Black Enterprise, among many others. She's also received numerous awards for her body of work, which crosses several genres, including the Career Achievement Award, the first recipient of the Trailblazer Award, the Zora Neale Hurston Literary Award, and the Gold Pen Award, among others. She has also received commendations for her community service. As an editor, she has packaged several highly successful novels and anthologies, two of which were nominated for awards. Her novel, Confessions in B-Flat, received a starred review from Publishers Weekly and is being adapted for the screen and executive produced by Academy Award winner Octavia Spencer. Her latest novel, I Am Aya, The Way Home, is also received a reviewed award from Publishers Weekly, and parts of it was compared to elements in Octavia Butler's Kindred by Kirkus Reviews. Hill is a graduate of Goddard College with an MFA in creative writing and is currently in pursuit of her Doctor of Arts in English Pedagogy and Technology. She's an assistant professor of professional writing at Medgar Evers College and lives in Brooklyn, New York with her family. Hill has been a supporter of the Center for Black Literature since its inception. She is the former interim director of the literary programs for the center and is a frequent guest speaker at the National Black Writers Conference. Miss Donna Hill.
Gee whiz. Thank you so much for that, Amber. So it goes without saying that I really am thrilled to be here, and especially to introduce, for total transparency, my editor, who has been my editor for like so long. I don't even want to say how many years because that might date us. But we go back a long ways. She is an outstanding editor, a good friend, and she has so much that she can share with us. Glenda Howard is the senior executive editor of the Harlequin series team in New York, which acquires for intrigue, romantic suspense, love-inspired, and love-inspired suspense. She has been with Harlequin since 2005 and has had the opportunity to work with many award-winning and best-selling authors, including B.J. Daniels, Shannon Stacy, Brenda Jackson, myself, and Sandra Owens. Glenda still finds it exciting to discover new authors for the editorial program. In her spare time, I don't know how she has any spare time, but when she does, she loves to read, travel, watch movies, and practice yoga. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Glenda. I know that you have so much that you can share with us. You have an incredible journey, which your bio doesn't even touch on, where you've been and what you've done. So I know you'll be able to share that with our attendees today. So now I will turn everything over to Amber Magruder, who is going to pummel you with questions and you can respond, as much or as little as you want. And then, of course, the floor will be open to questions from our audience, which is kind of like growing exponentially by the moment. So those questions will be posted in the chat, and we hope to be able to get everybody's questions. I actually see some of your authors here in the house as well. So welcome to those. Hi, Betty. So I will now turn it over to Amber.
Good afternoon again. So like Donna said, please put your questions in the chat so that we can have the opportunity to get Ms. Howard's perspective on some of the burning questions that I'm sure you all have. Hello again, Ms. Howard. So good to see
Hello.
you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session.
Thank you for coming. I know that Donna did some highlights regarding your career, but could
Mhm.
you just kind of let us know or take us along the trajectory of your career path and how you ended up to where you are today?
Okay, sure. Um, as you've mentioned, I am a senior executive editor at Harlequin, and I've actually been in the publishing industry for over 25 years. I started my career off at St. Martin's Press. I had previously been working in magazine sales, and I wanted to try a different career direction. So I applied for a position of publisher's assistant. I'm working directly with the publisher of St. Martin's Press. And this was really a wonderful experience because the publisher works with many different departments, such as marketing, sales, art, editorial, and production. All of these department heads, they interact with the publisher. And I learned so much valuable information being in that position. Initially, I would sit in on the editorial meetings and take notes, and it was interesting to hear the pitches from the editors on what they wanted to acquire and why. Then I wanted to take on a more active role. So I asked, could I read, the unsolicited manuscripts? And, I developed my editorial sense in that way. And the next step was meeting agents and getting them to submit projects to me. And I started building my publishing list. So I was at St. Martin's Press for about 6 years. And then I was able to advance to editor. And then after that, I moved over to BET Books and I headed up two imprints, Sepia Books and New Spirit. The Sepia was commercial women's fiction, and New Spirit was fiction books, but with a Christian element. So I
Mhm.
was there for about 5 years at BET Books. Um, and then Harlequin acquired BET Books. And so I shifted over to Harlequin, and I've been at Harlequin. It'll be 20 years this December 1st. And it's just been an amazing experience. It's been so rubric and rewarding experience. And I'm working still with authors such as the wonderful Donna Hill and Brenda Jackson and Zuri Day and BJ Daniels and Sandra Owens. And I also work closely with the senior editors on the series side of the business and those senior editors of Intrigue, Romantic Suspense, Love Inspired, and Love Inspired Suspense report directly to me. And I just wanted to say, explain the Harlequin series program a little. We
Mhm.
publish category romance in a variety of romance subgenres, and each line publishes a certain number of books a month. It could be anywhere from 4 books to 8 books. And we offer a different reading experience. Some could be sweet, some are spicy, wholesome, Western romantic suspense, but we always deliver to that promise of the line. So each month, we're constantly publishing these books, and the expectation is that we deliver to that count that we say we're going to publish to, because that's the reader expectation. And it's just been an amazing journey so far at Harlequin.
Great. That's a lot of information. And you said that you started off as an assistant. How
Yes,
long did it take you before you went from like assistant to editor? And can you talk about some of the things that you did to get to that point from assistant? Because it sounds like you had to be like a real go-getter and advocate for yourself in order to become an editor.
definitely. I came into the business, must have been around 1995 when I started at St. Martin's Press. And it was just so interesting working with the publisher because his office was here, mine was here, but there was a door. So you could hear all the conversations from all the
Right.
heads of the departments, from sales and marketing, art. And I would love sitting in on the editorial meetings and I would take notes. And I was like, I love these books. I love reading. And I really want to contribute. So I asked, I had to advocate for myself. And I asked, could I read um, these manuscripts and then give my opinion if we should move forward and acquire? And they were very open. And I was that was just such a blessing that they were open and they really believed in me, that I had the editorial eye, and that I was picking really great projects. And so then is even you have to have the confidence in yourself as well, but to do outreach to agents, because most publishing houses, they don't deal with authors unless you're agented. So you have to establish those relationships with agents. And then they have to have the confidence to send projects to you because they feel that you can really get them moved along. Because
Mhm.
you just don't buy a project by yourself. You always have to have input from a committee when you're buying books, these single books in the trade program. And so that was it was really rewarding. It was hard work, it's dedication, but it's something I really, really had a passion for. And this is something I really wanted to do. And so I always say that, if you want to take that next step, sometimes you have to be your biggest, cheerleader.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And
So
so you've been with Harlequin for a long time. What is it about being there that you appreciate, or what's made you stay there so long? Because I know in the industry, sometimes you can just hop around from house to
yeah,
house or from organization to organization. But what is it about, what's so special, I guess, about Harlequin for you?
yeah, yeah, I feel like there's a real warmth and support system there at Harlequin. A lot of the editors have been there a long time. People have been there 15, 20, 30 years. And I feel like Harlequin was very open and supportive, and they really listened to ideas that we brought forward or authors that we believed in and that we wanted to see published. Um, I felt like they were different from other publishing houses in that aspect. That I didn't feel that there was this negative energy of people just competing for the same project. If anything, they were very supportive and tried to shepherd it along.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Harlequin I felt like it was very different, and made you want to stay. I was very happy to be in that creative environment, and that we were always pushing for innovation and pushing for new programs. And that's
Hmm.
one of the aspects I really loved about being at, I love really being about at Harlequin.
Good. So I know we have a lot of aspiring authors on the call, and a lot of them want to know, like, what are publishers looking for? Like, I've been to different conferences, and I know that romance is like one of the top genres for writing and
Yes.
authors. And so what are publishers looking for in that genre? Like, what type of trends are you seeing? What are they looking
Well,
for?
there's always going to be a trend. I will say
Right.
that there's always the latest trend. Like there was the sports romances. Rom-com will have its moments. You'll see romances with the F1 Formula Racing. So there's always a
Wow.
trend, but you have to really write to what's in your heart and let it to
Okay.
be authentic. Um, so if you want to write a romance, have dynamic characters, let it
Mhm.
be layered, let the conflicts be strong. Dialogue is so important. So it's just really important to really work on your manuscript and really polish it and let it be the best project that it can be before you submit. Because romance is such a strong, you know, genre, and that it will always be very popular, and there'll always
Right.
be voice rising, rising in that part of the industry. So I just
Hmm.
say, do the best project you can. It's hard to say because if you go to conferences, people always say, "Well, what are you looking for? What are you looking for?" And it's always hard to say. But when that manuscript comes across your desk, you say, "This is what I'm looking for. This is great," because it has a spark to it. It's something that really resonates with that editor, and they're going to
Hmm.
push it.
So can you speak about the submission process for Harlequin? Do you need an agent? Can you speak about like the difference between having an agent or going directly to publishers? Because I know a lot of publishing houses don't allow you to go directly to them. Do you need an agent for Harlequin?
Right. Well, there's two sides of the business. We call it the series side of the business and the trade side of the business.
Okay.
And for the trade side of the business, you really do need an agent to submit there to those editors, and that's basically with all of the publishing houses. But on the series side of the business, we're rather unique in that you don't need an agent. We have like 10 different category romance lines, and we have writing guidelines that are up. Submit to Harlequin, write for Harlequin. Let me tell you the harlequinsubmittable.com. That's the name of the website, harlequin.submittable.com. And it gives you information on all our romance lines. And you
Hmm.
don't need an agent to submit. Um, And we have the writing guidelines on that site as well of what those particular romances are. Are they the sexy romances? Are they wholesome? Are they the more ones with more Christian slant to them? Are they
Hmm.
suspense? So you have to look and figure out which one is the best one for you, and then submit. But we also have a site called tryharlequin.com where you can download a free book from the series line. So you get yourself more familiar with that editorial. Because we're always
Okay.
always looking for new writers and encouraging. So those we have these tools and resources for people to get themselves more familiar.
Okay. Now, we've been asking our guests to kind of give their view or their purview on self-publishing because there's so many different avenues that writers can go down now. You have self-publishing, you have the traditional route, you also have hybrid where you work
Hmm.
with publishers and they might help you a little, but you have to pay. So what
Yeah,
are your views on like the self-publishing and the hybrids?
I have worked with authors who have actually been with the traditional publishers, then left and did self-publishing, and
Hmm.
some who have come back and completely stayed with the traditional publisher, and some are hybrid. So there's pros and cons. I won't say pros and cons, but the difference is that okay, if you're just self-publishing on your own, all that work is on you. So you have to be very dedicated to your career. Anywhere from, of course you weren't going to write that manuscript, but if you creating that copy, your cover copy, creating that cover, the marketing. It's all on you as an author to be in charge of all of those aspects of your book. Um, and some people have done that and been very successful, but then decided, I don't want to do all this heavy lifting by myself, but I still want to keep one toe in. And then they approach the traditional publisher and they're hybrid. And then they're hybrid. They got the best of both worlds.
Hmm.
Because some people they write so many books that they decide I still want to be an independent indie. I would still want to go the indie route because
Hmm.
publishers will only publish a certain number of books. Usually, they only publish a certain number of books from an author because they don't want to, be too saturated. They want to give the
Hmm.
consumers time to like purchase your book. But still, as an indie author, if they feel like they want to publish more books than their traditional publisher can handle, they'll do that, and that's fine.
Hmm.
But with traditional publishers, I will say that it is wonderful to have an art team working on your cover, and you have
Right.
the freelance writers creating that cover copy, and then having that editorial team working on your manuscript and working with you as a partner. So there's different aspects. I won't say any one side of the business is negative. It's just there's pros and cons to each.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about the indie like publishing houses. Like, what's the difference between those big publishing houses and then the independent ones?
Well, independent ones are really more like the author will establish their own. Sometimes they establish their own house, and they call it. I'm going the independent route. There are
Okay.
small publishers out there, but indies usually these authors create their own publishing house, and then they publish books under
Hmm.
under that.
Okay. Um, so how important do you think diversity and inclusivity in the publishing industry is, particularly in the representation of Black women's voices and stories?
I think it's very very important to have diversity um, in book publishing. It's great to have a different perspective.
Hmm.
Um, because for so long it's been predominantly white. And in recent years, publishers, they understand we need to have of a more diverse workforce. And there's been, a call out, to really get more people from underrepresented backgrounds in this field. And I do like the efforts that have been put forth, I have to say. Um, because there has been anywhere from publishing houses holding sessions and stuff in-house regarding diversity and recognizing that there's different perspectives and we need to have an understanding of everyone's different cultures. There's been a big push for mentorships. There's been a big push for internships. So I really feel like it's very positive, the way publishers are viewing having this diverse workforce. So it's
Okay,
really good
yes,
to see those change.
Yeah, I was going to say that I know that in the last few years there have been a push, like when I see different call for submissions, they're looking specifically for BIPOC authors,
Yeah.
authors of color, people of color, LGBTQ. They're really trying to get the diversity in. Does it seem to be working? Are we hearing from more of those diverse voices, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I feel like we are. There years ago we were publishing a lot of books from Black authors. There was a certain period of time, and then it kind of, everything goes in cycles. And
Yeah.
so then it kind of went flat. But then in these recent years, you're seeing a lot more, authors getting published. You're seeing, which is wonderful, a lot more new voices coming forward, telling their stories. So it's been really wonderful, I think, for the industry to see that.
Okay. So we have a lot of questions, so
Okay.
I can come back to my questions if we need to, but I'm just going to look at the chat and see what we have. Let me see. Oh, I have to scroll a lot. Okay, here we are. Um, so we have something from Betty Lynn. She says
Mhm.
some of the current popular tropes in romance leave her cold. What are the ones that your staff is currently interested in?
I will say that, tropes, they're romance device. And it's really up to that writer when they're writing their story about which particular trope they want to use. We don't really put a call out for, tropes like forced proximity or, friends to lover, enemies to lovers. It's just really how that writer is going to incorporate that trope into their story and having those dynamic characters that's going to create this exciting story. So I
Hmm.
don't know if it's really the tropes that's being overused or it's just the execution of the story, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. We have one from Donna Hill. Can you talk a bit about Kamani True and your experience choosing projects?
Oh, Kamani True. Yes, that was our young adult line where where under the Kamani umbrella, we publish books, young adult books featuring diverse characters. And it was really a wonderful experience um publishing those books. We and just yeah. We lasted a couple of years, but sometimes it's timing of when you are launching an imprint. Like if the audience is really responding and really supporting that line with sales, because that's what it's all about is getting that big enough distribution out there for those books and maintaining that distribution. But that was something that we were very proud of, the Kamani True line, because we really got to feature broad experiences for the teen to teen audiences. The teens really appreciated those books. We did hear back from them because we would go out to the libraries and have chats with the librarians and the students and teens, and it was really positive feedback. But it was just the timing where we just couldn't build a big enough audience at that time to really
Okay.
sustain the line. So you will see that that happens in publishing. Sometimes we can um, launch an imprint and it can last a couple of years, but then, you have to shutter it and then you have to reassess.
Right,
Other
right,
lines will come forward. Yeah, that's the nature of the business. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And along those same lines, like we were talking about trends, and how the trends are always changing, and then the audience, you have to keep on up with what they want. We have another question. Are there any tropes that are overdone?
I don't really feel that way. I really, I don't feel like I said before, I think it's the execution, is how you're going to incorporate that trope in your book. Will those characters be um, dynamic? Will they be enough layers to your story? Because sometimes that story is just going flat. Maybe there's not enough um, emotional tension in that story. There's not enough conflict. There are a number of elements that really makes a story uh, very compelling. And
Can you
so,
speak on those elements that you think make a story compelling?
well, I think it's you having these wonderful characters that
Right.
people care about, the hero and the hero. I think it's the what is that conflict that's going to keep them apart? Is it a really strong conflict and can it sustain the book? Because sometimes you get to the middle of the book and it's just flat, which means that that conflict that you built up in the beginning is not strong enough to sustain, you know. that full story arc. Um, Dialogue is really important. Is that dialogue, snappy? Do I feel engaged in this book? You know, um, do I? And I think those particular things, characters, conflict, dialogue, um, that helps maintain that story arc. And if we're going flat, we just don't have a good story that's really going to compel the reader to keep turning those pages.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Here we have another question. Can you explain the difference? We touched on this a little bit, but can you explain the difference between series and trade?
Mm-hmm. Well, the trade program, really it's the program where the author, it could be commercials, usually like commercial fiction, it could be literary fiction, but it's on the trade side of the business. And each author, they're submitting that one book for evaluation. It's that one book, and this is the book that um, the whole committee is going to look at and evaluate and to see if this is the book we can get behind and publish and put out there in the retail space. We can will it have we can put it out audio, we can put it out digital. So this book, it has a lot of weight when you're going into the trade program because you have to really is on your author brand, and that team has to sell it based on your author brand, your name, and this book. And then the series program is a little different because we have an umbrella over here of where we're publishing 4 to 6 books in a line. That's what we call a line. We're publishing with 4 to 6 books on this side of the business, and it's a little easier to get in because we're selling you on the Harlequin brand and a
Mhm.
promise. Um, the promise is when I'm publishing a romantic suspense, you're going to get this really exciting romance with lots of suspense. These people are being pursued, their lives are in danger. That's the promise of this line, and each book is going to deliver to that promise. But over here on the trade side, it's just that book that you are publishing based on your brand and this wonderful story that you're telling, and they're evaluating on that merit alone. And traditionally, a lot of books are in the trade program,
Mhm.
um, but it's all the weight is on you to really deliver a dynamic and wonderful book. And some people, it's very competitive feel. I will say that trade side of business is incredibly competitive, and you really want to have a good sales record because the retailers, they're always going to be evaluating. It's such a competitive space right now. And
Right, right. It really is.
it really is competitive space. So if we're acquiring this book, there's a lot of risk with acquiring the books, but we have to put that marketing support behind it. The sales team's going out and pitching it to that retailer. And we're trying to really build a lot of visibility and awareness for it. And we really want it to do well. So you can get another
Right.
book contract. Yeah.
Right. And speaking of competition, have you noticed that, maybe since COVID, there's been like more of an uptick because I've noticed like the trend, like there's more people out there with their manuscripts. People are reading more, people are
Mhm.
writing more.
Yeah, I think COVID gave people the opportunity since they were at home to really
Right.
pursue their passions, whether it was just reading more books and really and finding comfort there, or writing, pursuing, say, I'm home now. I don't have to travel. Let me, really work on my book. And
Right.
so I think that gave them a lot more opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. We have another one. What trends are you seeing in romance? This is from Joyce Davis. She
Hmm.
said she's just read her first romance novel in about a decade, Tia Williams, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. And it was very different from the romances she read in the 90s and early 2000s. She's curious about how you're seeing the genre change.
I feel like the genre sometimes gets a little edgier. People pushing the card more. You're
Oh,
seeing
really? How so?
romance. Well, um, you'll see the trend now is coming of dark romance, where the characters could be more morally gray. You'll see some mafia romances where one of the characters is like from a crime family, but there's a
Mhm.
romance there. So more morally gray characters on the dark romance side. So there's more. Some of these romances more complex than they've been in the past.
Mhm.
Uh, So you're seeing the envelope pushed a little bit more. And sometimes you'll see more sexy. Some of these romances are more sexy, a little bit more explicit. So I think it's pushing the card a little bit more because you've got new readers coming in. And if a certain book does well, then more people say, let me try this, let me try
Right.
this. Yeah. So I think that's what you're saying. There's a little bit more edginess sometimes, I think, to these romances as we move
And
forward.
because you mentioned sex, and that used to be like taboo, or when people think of sex, they don't know. Like, I know as a writer, how much is too much, or how do you know how to incorporate that particular item into, if you are writing romance, how do you know whether to incorporate it? Because you have so many different viewpoints. Some people say don't be too explicit.
Mhm.
Some other people might say you need to sex it up more. How do you really find that balance?
I really think it's up to the author to stay within their comfort level. Some
Hmm.
people, they really want to go sexy. They enjoy it, and that's fine. And there's an audience for that. It's like, oh,
Right.
it's off the charts. But some people, they're very modest. They're like, I don't feel comfortable.
Hmm.
I'd rather have these closed bedroom scenes. And that's fine too, because there's an audience for that as well. So I think it's really about being true to yourself because you'll feel,
Okay.
as you're writing your story, you'll feel so conflicted if you're not being true to yourself.
Right.
I'm not enjoying writing the story.
Right. And
Like
if you
some
don't enjoy
writers,
it, then the
right,
people aren't going to
right,
enjoy reading it either.
right. You could tell, like, okay, what happened here? So yeah, I just say stay true to yourself. And there's an audience for the full range of romances with,
Okay, let's see
different
what else we
levels.
have.
Mhm.
Um, let me see. Um, Let me see. We have someone that says this. Do you have at Harlequin a women's fiction imprint that doesn't require HEA?
Happily ever after. That's
Okay. I was like, what is
yeah.
HEA? Okay.
Yeah, well, I would say that would be more like the trade side of the business, which is
Hmm.
like Mira. We have the Mira line, but you'll need an agent. You'll need an agent to submit um to that particular to the trade lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me
Because it's more like
see.
you're going more in, you're not really a romance is usually promised happily ever after.
Right.
So sometimes
That's
there's
why
like,
we read it, because we
yeah,
want to
you
escape
want
our
the happily
lives
ever
and have
after.
happily ever
But
after
you're more like commercial fiction, and maybe there is a romance in there, but it's not,
aspect.
aspect to the story. But you're
Right.
not going for that happily ever after. Um, yeah, that sounds like more like you just want to submit to the trade side of the business,
Hmm.
and they'll consider it over there. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Mhm.
Good. That was a good question. Let me see. Where is that? Okay, here's another question from Divana Petrie. She
Mhm.
asks, do you recommend spending a few $1,000s on developmental editing before pitching manuscripts to literary agents? That's a very good question, because I've seen that, I mean, not that everyone is a scam, but everyone kind
Mhm.
of has a hustle. And there's
Yeah.
some people out there that said, they'll be like, give me a couple of $1,000s. Like, I sent something to an agent that I thought was an agent, and she said, oh, okay, that's fine, but I have this editing portion to my business, and we need to give you, you need to spend this much money before we can take you to the next level. So do you recommend working with an agent and paying out of pocket before you send your manuscript in?
Well, to tell you, I haven't had much experience with this, like getting these type of questions. So that's something I really couldn't answer
Okay.
to. But I know a lot of writers, they team up with other writers and they review each other's works and give critique and give feedback.
Right.
Even the ones
Writing
who are
groups.
seasoned and written a number of books. So I think that's kind of valuable advice if you could find a writing group where people can look over your work and give, if you
Mhm.
feel like, if you respect their, opinion,
Right.
some
Right.
people
There
get
are a lot
busy
of
publish,
writing
yes.
groups,
There's a lot of writing groups, yeah. Um, so I
especially now
always felt like
because you
that's,
can do it virtually.
yeah. So I really feel like that could be a good resource. I don't have any recommendations on any writing groups, but this is what I've heard that people said this has been helpful to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Are there any absolute no's in terms of storylines for the imprint that you oversee?
Well, there are specific guidelines for each imprint
Hmm.
that I oversee. So, like, let's just say for romantic suspense, someone submits there, but if they have supernatural elements in there, like that's a no-no. Or it's paranormal, that's a no-no, because
Hmm.
there's like, no, we're not featuring those elements in romantic suspense. So
Okay.
some things you can see is just a hard no. It's just like, no, this won't be a good fit.
Hmm.
Yeah, for the line.
Okay. Where is that? Okay. Um, we have a few more questions. How do you feel about book bookstagram and book talk? Do you think
Mhm.
those are good vehicles to either meet people or get your manuscripts out there?
I think at this point, social media plays such a major role um, in helping authors gain visibility, whether it's through their own, Instagram, Facebook, newsletters. So, book talk. Yeah, we've seen people, yeah, gain a good readership just by people saying, "Oh, I read this book," and then they're on Book Talk and they're recommending it, and it's growing, and the buzz is growing. So,
Mhm.
social media can be a great vehicle for authors to build their presence. It really can.
Yeah, and along that same vein, how important do you think it is for a new author to already have like a certain amount of followers, a certain platform? Because I know before it was just the business of writing. Now there's so
Mhm.
many different elements that you have to already have before you can get published. And I've been to a lot of places and I've talked to people and they say that, oh, how many followers do you have? Or what's your platform? Or how important do you think that is?
Um, I think it's I think it's important. I think it's could be very vital aspect of an author getting picked up by a publisher, to tell you the truth, because a lot of publishers are, when they're getting projects and then they're evaluating that person's social media followers, and they go, oh, this person has these many followers, because that's a built-in audience for them already
Right.
to help this book get established. So I think that we have to look at authors and publishers as partners now, and it's great when you can bring that to the table, your social media
Mhm.
followers to the table, because that's really going to help you grow your brand overall. Not saying that everyone, has that, but it's great. It's wonderful to have that.
Right.
Those
It's an asset. It's not mandatory, but
That's
it
not meant to, but it's a
definitely
great
helps.
asset to have. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. We have another question. This one is from Elaine Hunter. How does Harlequin evaluate the success of their published series books?
Um, well, there's been many series authors who've done quite well, and we look at where they're coming in the lineup, because if there's 1 to 6 books that we're publishing, and they're always number one. And we're looking at the reviews. We're looking at sales, and some people have published in that program for like over 10 years. So I will say that when a lot of these authors in the series program, they're building their own mini series, their
Hmm.
own, and that's how they're getting more readers to follow them, because they're invested in these characters. And then you want to see the next brother, what's going to happen with his story, or the sister, or the cousin. And so a lot of people have miniseries with long tails to them. Yeah. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's been a great experience for a number of authors.
Okay. And we have another question. How well do sequels do?
Sometimes sequels can do very well, especially I would say a miniseries, because like I mentioned before, there are authors who have miniseries with maybe 5 books, 10 books. You could tell because that reader demand is still there. Some
Hmm.
people has 20 books in a miniseries.
Wow.
Yeah. as long as you could keep it exciting and keep the readers engaged, I don't think that there is a number that we cut it off at, unless you feel like
Right. There's no limit.
unless the reader's just getting exhausted and you could just say, oh, that last book. Or the author was saying, you know what, I'm tired of this series. I got to do something different now. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but it's usually the characters that keep you coming
Yes.
back. If you can relate
Yes.
to that character, if you can get the
Yes.
audience hooked and get them to care about the character, then they'll read
Yes.
everything in the series.
That is so important because sometimes an author will write a book and they're not even thinking about giving this particular character their own story, but the readers will write into them saying, could you please give this person a story? I know he's only appeared for like 3 lines on this page, but I really want to know more about him. And
Really?
yes, yes, it has
Okay.
happened. Minor characters, getting their own stories, or um, sometimes 5 brothers and they can't wait for that fifth brother to get his story. They just the anticipation is just building. So these miniseries can be really nice and great for reader engagement.
Okay. Let me see. And here's another one that's about sequels. Does each book need to be self-sustaining? In case someone picks up one of the sequels before the first book? So when you're doing sequels, I guess the question is, does each book need to be self-sustaining?
Yes,
Or
yes.
because she says she's received guidance not to leave or to not leave cliffhangers that will be addressed in a sequel.
Um, I think sometimes cliffhangers they can work well, but sometimes they leave because readers like, I want to know what happened. Why did you leave me hanging?
Yeah.
with that cliffhanger. So yeah, I'm not surprised about that particular feedback. But each story should, you know, be have a nice story arc that we can understand about the family, about these characters, and it may, give details about the prior book. But if somebody's coming in new to this book, you want them to really have a really complete and whole read. They feel like, okay, I understand this full story. I love this book. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like there's a bunch of questions. You try to address
Right.
them in this particular book. Has to be able to stand alone on its own.
Okay. So I'm going to switch gears now. We have some questions about query letters. So for those who don't know, can you kind of talk about like what a query letter is, how you incorporate it? And there's a question, what elements of a query letter is essential to draw you in?
Well, query letters, yes, serves as that introduction of the author to the editor, telling them a little bit about themselves, um, tell them about the story, what the story is about, if it's suspense stories featuring these particular, characters. You can give your background, your education, your background. Um, so the query letter is great for me as an introduction to who you are and what that story is about. Um, but a lot of editors would like to see like the first 3 chapters as well, because you could do a wonderful query letter, but then it's like, does that writing deliver? So
Hmm.
that's why it's important to. You'll see most of the time. I would think that with the query letter, you would get those first 2 chapters from a lot
Okay.
of editors, and they ask for that material as well.
Hmm. And how important are comp titles when you do a query letter?
I think it's good to help position the book to say my book is in that vein. So that
Okay.
really, I think that's helpful. That comp
Okay.
title. Yeah.
We have another question. How do you help an author build a brand? Is that part of what you do? Like we were talking about how they should already, if they already have a platform, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't, if I come to you and I'm just like, I'm a hermit and I
Mm-hmm.
don't really do
Right.
social media, but I'm a good writer and I'm good at what I do, what can you help me do to build my brand?
Well, I guess the first step is that we have to deliver the best book that's possible.
Mm.
Um, so we're going to make sure that manuscript is tight. And that it's entertaining and it's exciting. And then we're going to ensure that that cover delivers to that genre that you're publishing in. I don't know if it's suspense, if it's sweet, if it's sexy. That cover has got to attract those readers. Is on the rack. We only have 2 seconds to get that attention. We want a strong package and ensure that that cover copy is compelling as well. Um, there's I know on the Harlequin series side, we'll sometimes have, campaigns where we're trying to do more outreach and build more visibility for the series books. So, we'll say, we want this new author's book in the campaign, or we'll have like, online reads to our Harlequin audience. We'll include them in newsletters. It's all about, is like a grassroots effort. And sometimes with the authors who are hermits, you still have to build some type of social presence. I think that is important. Whether
It's essential nowadays.
it really, really is. It
Yeah.
really is. You have to, because it's so competitive out there. And how do you
Yeah.
build visibility for yourself? Yeah.
Okay. We have something from Marlene Barr. She asked, is there a subgenre which mixes romance and science fiction? If you know of one, is there a market for this subgenre? Is there something already out there that you're aware of?
Not that we're publishing in the series side, because we used to
Right.
publish the Nocturne line, which was paranormal, which was the
Mhm.
romance. But there are people who are self-publishing. I will say this: you have to do the research on which publisher is doing like fantasy and romance. They're out there, but you just have to do the research, and
Right.
then you could direct your manuscript to them, because it's important to do the research and to have submit to the right place, to the right
Right.
publisher. Yeah.
That's true for everything,
Yeah.
especially like
Yeah.
with agents. You can't submit to someone if you don't know what their preference are.
Right.
And
Right.
with social media, like with X, which used to be Twitter, a lot of agents are on there anyway, talking about what they like and what they want. So I agree, research is very important.
Yeah. I just saw Joyce mention the romantasy. Yes, romantasy is bubbling up, definitely. And those books are being published by a number of publishers. But I thought that
Mhm.
person said, it's a combination of romance and
And
fantasy aspects.
fantasy.
But yeah, but definitely do the research on which publishers are doing that.
Okay, we have another one. Um, We have something from Lisa Creighton. She says she's read Harlequin romances for decades since she was a teen and was excited about the launch of love-inspired and love-inspired romance. She says there are not a lot of characters of color in the lines and is it because Harlequin has not received a lot of related manuscripts, and or how welcoming have readers been to the diverse characters in the inspirational lines?
Well, I will say, for Love Inspired Suspense, we have been publishing more diverse characters in these last a few years. We are open to having more diverse voices and characters of color in those lines, and they hold a open submission. They recently held an open submission, Love Inspired Suspense, encouraging new authors to send a query letter, submit their manuscript, and they were giving feedback. So we definitely are looking for more diverse voices for those lines. And it's just important for people to get feedback so they can really deliver a book that would be perfect for those particular lines. Oh, we lost our host.
I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Sometimes I know technology. It's freezing.
Oh, she might have gotten frozen, so let me jump in.
Hey.
Everybody. Oh, Amber's back. So I think what I would like you to talk a little bit about is for what constitutes for writers who are just starting out, because like I know
Mhm.
what to send, right? But for
Right.
writers who are just starting out, what constitutes a package that an editor should receive from an author? What are the pieces of the puzzle? I know you said, the first three chapters or whatever. What should they be sending to you so that when you sit down, you can say, okay, this is something that I'm going to take a look at, especially if they're coming into the series programs that they don't need an agent. So what do they need to
Mhm.
send to you if they want to get your attention?
Well, for each particular line, I know there's the senior editor evaluates, for their particular lines, and we'll have writing guidelines. on write for Harlequin. And I think the query letter is very important. Like I say, the introduction of that um, person, telling them about their particular background and what the story is about, giving us a good sense of what that story is about, what that story arc is about, beginning to end, what that conflict is, and what those tropes will be. And that first three chapters, I think, is really important because sometimes it's take reading those first three chapters to say, I really like this author's voice. This seems to be really exciting. I want to see more. And some people have written the full manuscript, some people haven't. But I think it's important to really evaluate on those first three chapters. That, to me, I could make a good evaluation once I see the writing.
I also, the my understanding, and I could be wrong because I'm getting old, but a query letter for me was something completely different from, what you're kind of saying that it is.
Yeah,
Like in the beginning, back in the good old days, a query letter was what you were saying. It's the introduction, it's a couple of pages. This is what the story is about. Are you interested? And if you are, I'll send you my manuscript. Fine.
right.
But the synopsis of the story, is that
Mhm.
also part of your package, which is a lot more detailed? This is what the story is about. These are the conflicts, because that, I think, and I could be wrong, is what sells you on, do I
Yeah,
even read these three chapters?
yes. I think, yeah. Well, I have to say, like for the trade side of the business, um, those materials will be going first to an agent. Yeah. But for the series side of the business, yes, when you're um inquiring with us, if the query letter, a synopsis is always important to have as well. I'm sorry, I left that part out where you really give me the details of your story. That synopsis could be anywhere, from 3 to 5 pages. Um, Gives me a really true sense of the story, that whole arc, and then those first three chapters. And I think those are really important elements to have for the editor to consider.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Mhm.
I
Uh-huh.
think we have time for one more question. This one comes from Joyce Davis. Have you seen a trend of narratives in television or film projects that impact the submissions in romance? We know that it does the other way around, but have you
Mhm.
seen a trend where television and film projects impact submissions, literary submissions?
Um, well, I know that the film world, they will look at book projects and they'll take
Right.
those books to film. And if that really works, they're looking, both media are looking at each other, see what's been successful. And they're
Mhm.
creating trends, and more of these projects are going to be um, done. They're going to be get the green light. Um, so I would say it goes both ways, to tell you the truth. If they're seeing success bubbling up in books, the film industry is going to be very curious, and they want to acquire and they want to move forward because they know there's a readership there, and it goes the same way in the opposite direction. That's
Okay.
my feeling. That's my personal thoughts on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donna, did you have any additional questions? We're almost out of time. We have 2 minutes. You want to take those last 2 minutes, Donna, if you have a question?
Um, yeah, sure. One of the selling points for novels, once they get into the store, are the covers.
Yes.
So the cover is sort of like, for the readers, the first point of sale, other than maybe, especially if you don't know the writer. Um,
Right.
how much goes into the cover art, and how much input does the author have in developing their cover?
Well, I would say for the trade side of the business, I think the author will um will get to review the cover and for accuracy and make sure it's authentic to the story. Um, because it's very important. That cover really is essentially going to sell that book. That's the first view. And some authors may have it in their contract that, I need author approval on this cover. That's if you really built establish a name for yourself. But most of the time they get to consult with the publisher on the cover. And then for the series side of the business, we really um, we're doing like, 4 covers that particular month. We're on a tighter timeline, but those covers will be sent to those authors so they can view them and say for accuracy. But basically, I will say that writers, the authors have to fill out something called an art brief template, giving all directional aspects of what their characters look like, those scenes, what would make a good scene for the book. So there's some interaction where the authors can give input on those covers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one last question before you go with the topic of covers. What decision process goes into determining whether people go on the cover or whether art goes on the cover? Or
That's a really good question. Because when they try to position a book, let's just say on the trade side, they'll see, what's really been selling, what's been resonating with the readers. We should go for a cover with no people. We should go more iconic, So there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of people who give input, because sometimes you can execute a cover that has no people on the cover, and we'll take it to the sales team will review it, and they go, I don't think that this is strong enough. Let's go revise it and put some people on the cover. So it goes through a long process where we have different department heads giving their input. So yeah, because covers are so important that it gets a lot of review attention in-house, I will say.
Well, Miss Howard, it is 4:01, so I'm glad we were able to not take up too much of your time, but you have given us invaluable information, and I appreciate you sitting here with us and talking to our audience at the Center for Black Literature. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great, just sharing my experience with the participants. And I do hope that the information has been useful.
It's been invaluable. And to our audience, we have one final iteration of this series. Next week, we'll have Miss Monique Patterson, Vice President, Editorial Director of Bramble TOR's Publishing Group. So we hope that you join us next week. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.